Hello and welcome back to Live from Paris. It's time now for a look at today's business news, and for that I'm joined by Matthew Warren. Matthew, Saturday is quite an important day here in France, certainly for the future of the steelmaker ArcelorMittal.
Yes, and that's right, Lorna. That's because the government's given the French steelmaker until Saturday to find a buyer for two blast furnaces at a site in northeastern France. Now, if they don't, they say they'll close them permanently, and that would see more than 600 jobs go. And there in these pictures we can see some of the workers from that site protesting at the finance ministry in Paris. Now, the French government says that it wants to be able to sell the whole site and that it's even found a potential buyer for that, but the company is resisting because it says it needs other parts of the site for the rest of its French operations.
And the government's also even talking about nationalising the site as well.
Yes, Paris saying that still remains an option, and on Thursday the head of the employers' organisation in France said that was scandalous that they should be saying that. But for workers at some other struggling French companies, talks of nationalisation is seen as a possible way out of their woes.
They say hope floats. Some employees here at Chantier de l'Atlantique fear their livelihood could be sinking and hope the shipyard will soon be nationalised.
Better to be nationalised than look for another job or to be sold to some company and have them shut up shop.
It could be a solution, but if we don't have any orders, then what's the point?
In 2008, France bought a 33% stake of STX from a South Korean group. Then President Nicolas Sarkozy visited the site and proudly called it a strategic asset. He tried to reassure workers their sector had already been hit by the financial crisis. But today it's anything but blue skies for the shipyard. There are no new orders and 30% of the workforce has lost their job. Some here wonder if the state didn't do enough and now nationalization is being considered elsewhere. At ArcelorMittal's Florange site, a Petroplus refinery, and even for Peugeot Citroën. But those representing bosses say such a proposal violates the principle of private property.
Considering nationalisation, even having a debate about it, is really scandalous.
The socialist government and ArcelorMittal are at odds, but both sides are trying to find a solution by Saturday.
Now, Matthew, we're going to move to Germany now, because Parliament there is voting today on the latest bailout for Greece.
Yes, this is the bailout package that was agreed by the country's lenders earlier this week, and means that Greece will get a much-needed injection of 34 billion euros by the middle of December. But before they can get their hands on that money, the German Parliament and some other EU parliaments actually needs to approve it. Well, the German Parliament will be voting later this Friday. The country's finance minister says he's confident that it will go through.
Okay, and meanwhile, the head of the European Central Bank has also been talking about the crisis in the Eurozone.
Yes, now Mario Draghi has been talking to a French radio station this Friday morning. Now, he's been saying that the Eurozone crisis is far from over. Well, we knew that already, but he's also sticking to his view that the recovery will start in the second half of next year.
Okay, well, given all that news, how are the markets looking this Friday?
They are looking a little bit nervous, at least here in Europe. We can take a look at the market open, and they're all pretty flat, slipping sometimes into the red or the green. Take a look there. All slightly down, just a little bit. Now, the mixed messages coming out of these budget negotiations in the US, which is dragging down sentiment a little bit. Asian markets fared a little bit better in the Friday session. They're closed now. They like the fact that the US economy grew at a faster pace than expected, up 2.7% in the third quarter. There's some GDP news out of India as well, which I can give you. Its growth rate announced for the third quarter this Friday, and that was 5.3%. Now, that's a bit slower than had been expected and hoped for, and it'll put pressure on the government to take some stimulus measures. Well, let's get some of the day's company news, and lawsuits continue to fly following bad news from Hewlett-Packard. HP has announced a $9 billion write-down on its purchase of the software firm Autonomy. Well, now the company's accountants could be sued. The lawsuit says that Deloitte and KPMG failed to spot that Autonomy was overvalued.
A strike at the port in Los Angeles could threaten economic growth. That's the warning from the port's owners, who have called on President Obama to intervene. Container ships have begun diverting to other ports in California and Mexico. The striking workers claim the port wants to outsource jobs.
And shares are up in Hitachi and Mitsubishi. The two Japanese companies are merging their thermal power businesses. Demand for electricity generating equipment's growing in Asia, and the move's designed to help them both better compete with their rivals General Electric and Siemens.
Okay, well, we're going to stay in Japan because it is hoping that a new trade deal with the EU could boost its economy a bit.
Yes, that's right. The European Union has agreed to start negotiations on this free trade deal with Japan, but not everyone is happy about the proposal. European car makers, for example, are saying that they are worried about a rise in Japanese car imports.
Struggling to resolve a debt crisis, EU officials hope a potential free trade deal with Japan could stimulate consumer demand. The perks for Europe are clear: a €320 billion increase in production by 2020, increased exports, notably in food, drink, and luxury goods, and the creation of 400,000 new jobs, a move that got unanimous support from EU trade ministers.
We have a clear mandate confirmed by all the member states, so let's not be anxious. Europe is not naive. Europe is going into these negotiations with our eyes wide open.
But despite the encouragement, some are concerned. While Japanese automakers celebrated, some European ones fretted. Fears that Japanese cars could flood the market. They pointed to a previous trade deal with South Korea that spiked its auto exports in Europe. Some experts estimate up to 70,000 jobs could be at risk, but EU trade ministers vowed to safeguard their struggling car makers.
The roadmap is clear. It must be respected so that this agreement is ambitious and beneficial to European and French companies, as well as Japanese ones.
The potential EU and Japan deal would be massive. The two trading partners are responsible for a third of economic output worldwide. Officials say a project of this scale is likely to take several years to negotiate.
Well, finally, Matthew, you've got a bit of a birthday announcement for us today.
I thought that I would let Michael Jackson sing it rather than me have the real
What
thing.
a shame.
But Thriller, the album, is 30 years old this November the 30th, 1982, way back in the early 80s. Now, we're talking about it because not only is it a very well-known album, 7 hits came off that album, it also was the best-selling album of all time, 110 million copies. And it also did a lot for the music business, which was in the doldrums at the start of the 80s, really struggling, as it sort of is now as well. Periodically, but it really helped to revitalise it. And also that video we saw a clip of was 13 minutes long. That's the first time anyone had done anything like that, and that also gave a huge boost to the video music industry as well. So big day for music, Michael Jackson fans, and also for the record industry.
Indeed. Well, you'll be moonwalking out of the studio in memory, perhaps, maybe. Thanks very much indeed, Matthew, for that look at today's business news. That's it from us for now. Thanks for watching, and don't go away. Karen Creed will be here with more news headlines right after the international weather. Next, here on France 24.